Welcome to Midnight's Edge After Dark. My name is Tom Connors. With me is Michael Wilk from the Wilk Report. We're going to be simulcasting on his channel as well. We're having a Sunday morning brunch with us here on Midnight's Edge After Dark. We're waiting for Larry Bernard, his partner. Hopefully he'll join us here shortly. But yeah, we've got some less Moonves news to talk about, as you were about to say there, Mike. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it seems that Les Moonves is in trouble again. Deadline.com reports that 6 additional women are accusing Les Moonves of sexual harassment or assault, writes the New Yorker's Ronan Farrow in an article posted today. The incidents allegedly took place between the 1980s and the early 2000s, according to Farrow, and include claims that Moonves forced the women to perform oral sex, exposed himself without their consent, and used physical violence and intimidation against them. And showing the New Yorker article, which I'll see if I can link to in chat here. But yeah, this is all pretty damning because right now Moonves is trying to negotiate a departure from CBS with $100 million exit package. So yeah, this is pretty big news.
Yeah, of course, we've been following it here on Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark for a while now, considering it has a lot of connections with Star Trek and a few other things that we cover. So this is pretty big news, like you said. All of a sudden, after he had this option to take, there's even more coming down. Looks really bad for him. I guess.
Yeah, because just on September 6th, 3 days ago, Moonves was negotiating an exit from CBS.
Right, that's what I was
They were offering him $100 million to go away, basically. This is after he lawyered up big time a few weeks ago. And if you recall, this is not the first time that Moonves has developed a reputation for doing stuff like this, because back in 2004 when in fact, some of you may or may not have been alive back then, but back in 2004, there was an incident during the Super Bowl where Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson were doing a halftime show, and there was a wardrobe malfunction, and Janet Jackson ended up having one of her breasts exposed accidentally, and Moonves reportedly sought to ruin Jackson's career following that incident. Never went after Timberlake. But then again, maybe he doesn't have much of a career to ruin, to be perfectly honest.
Timberlake?
But yeah,
yeah. Well, I'd say he's got more of a career than Janet Jackson does, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, this is pretty big news because, like I said, Moonves is infamous in Hollywood for being pretty vindictive, and now he's pretty much watching his own career go down in flames because he's being exposed in more ways than one.
Yeah, and I mean, these accusations are more damning than the ones we had come out originally. Because the ones that had come out before that we'd reported on, it was mainly just forced kissing and physical
inappropriate touching, yeah.
Inappropriate touching and a little bit of physical force, but no actual sexual assault or rape of any kind that was mentioned. But these accusations, you're talking about actual physical sexual assault, and if he's trying to force people or forced somebody to perform oral sex, that would be full-on sexual assault, I would imagine. I mean, this is just, for this report is even more damning, like I said, than the original report from Farrow a long time ago. So, I mean, this is just...
Yeah, that was back in July, and according to the New Yorker article, I'm just going to quote a paragraph here. As the negotiations continue and shareholders and advocacy groups accuse the board of failing to hold Moonves accountable, new allegations are emerging. 6 additional women are now accusing Moonves of sexual harassment or assault in incidents that took place between the 1980s and the early aughts. They include claims that Moonves forced them to perform oral sex on him, that he exposed himself. Okay, so this is kind of rehashing what I just quoted.
Which a
But
lot
a
of these
number of the
articles
women
do,
also
yeah.
said that Moonves retaliated after they rebuffed him, damaging their careers. Similar frustrations about perceived inaction have prompted another woman to raise a claim of misconduct against Jeff Fager, the executive producer of 60 Minutes, who previously reported to Moonves as the chairman of CBS News. Now, one of the women with allegations against Moonves, a veteran television executive named Phyllis Golden Gottlieb, told me that she filed a criminal complaint last year with the Los Angeles Police Department accusing Moonves of physically restraining her and forcing her to perform oral sex on him, and of exposing himself to her and violently throwing her against a wall in later incidents. The two worked together in the late 1980s. Law enforcement sources told me, that's a Sparrow, because I'm quoting from the article, that they found Golden Gottlieb's allegations credible and consistent, but prosecutors declined to pursue charges because the statute of limitations for the crimes had expired. Earlier this year, Moonves informed a portion of the CBS board about the criminal investigation. So, so really the only reason Moonves isn't in a courtroom right now is because the statute of limitations are
That was my question going, and then you just answered it, was how are the statutes of limitations on these things? Because if they were that old, then this would be past.
I'm not sure about the latest, the ones that are alleged to have taken place in the mid to late aughts, because the statute of limitations may or may not have run out on those. I'm not entirely familiar with the law on that one.
But the reason this stuff is important now, though, is it could be used in the current case, correct? Because, I mean, obviously I'm not really luckily, I'm not up to speed on a lot of the sexual assault charges and how they work and statute of limitations and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't follow this kind of stuff too much with Midnight's Edge. This isn't normally something we dive into too often unless it affects either a film directly or someone's job directly, like most recently with the whole James Gunn situation. But that's what's funny here is that even with the whole James Gunn situation, he lost his job right away. And, of course, that's Disney, and there's more that goes into it considering it's a family business, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, and Roseanne got fired after making some blatantly racist tweets. So, Disney's really on top of this stuff, but for CBS, they're pretty much dragging their feet, and that makes me wonder why. Yeah,
because it seems like anybody else who's been wrapped up in any kind of situation like this, be it Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein, so on, Cosby, they've been blackballed right away and or fired right away. For some reason,
Cosby was a little longer going down because he was involved in court dealings for several years.
Was fired right away from 2 jobs. So, I mean, it was like everybody else was quick to act there. Same thing with James Gunn and, like you said, the Roseanne situation. And the Weinstein situation was a little bit more long-going, too, like Cosby. But at the same time, my point is this. Lasseter is another one. He's only at least been suspended. Moonves is still there. I mean, now we're talking about an exit package, but that's the point. I can't believe he's been there all this time. Like, I can't believe they didn't at least suspend him while they were conducting the investigation.
Yeah, and Cthulhu said in chat, is there some reason these multimillionaires can't hire prostitutes like normal people? Well, I guess they want to get their jollies going after young celebrities or...
Well, and you got to remember, a lot of this has to do with power more so than just sexual perversion of any kind.
Yeah, rape and sexual harassment have always been about power. They've never just been about the sex.
Because most of these guys can get whatever they want, like you just said. Yeah. Most of these guys can get whatever they want whenever they want. Well, the thrill is gone after a while, I'm sure. So then to them, it's more thrilling to have the power over somebody and the control. And that's where this situation comes in. And like we've said before in many other shows, it's not isolated to Hollywood. This is all over through corporate America and other places. It's just obviously in the news more when it comes to guys like this because they're such big celebrities, and I guess is the lack of a better word, or people within the industry when it comes to like Weinstein and Moonves. But it's not surprising, but it's just sad and sick that it's taken this long for this shit to come to light, I guess.
Right. Anthony Altieri asked a question: how is CBS dragging their feet? Any surprise at all? If they let him go, there is a contractual obligation to buy him out. Not necessarily, because they can fire him for cause. And what that means is that basically if he's fired for cause, then he doesn't get a severance package. So right now they're trying to save face more than anything else with the offer. But now that the Ronan Farrow article came out today, I don't see how that can last, because at this point they have more than enough cause to fire him. And, lawyer or no, if he's fired for cause, they don't have to give him anything.
Right, but the problem we have here is all this stuff's past the statute of limitations. So unless there's actually, I'm sure his argument is, unless there's any kind of criminal charges, they don't have just cause to fire him.
Right, but keep in mind, Mary Jo White, who former counterterrorism czar Richard Clark once described as being able to indict a ham sandwich as a federal prosecutor, she's actually involved in the internal investigation at CBS. So CBS is, they are dragging their feet, but they're taking their time, and the people they've picked to run the investigation, they are not people with a reputation for just kind of clocking it in and going home. No, these are people who have a reputation for getting to the bottom of things.
Well, that's
so, and that Moonves felt compelled to hire a high-profile lawyer in the first place says that he is worried that, they're going to find stuff.
Well, because he's never really denied any of this stuff. That's the thing. He's basically come out and said, well, my version is a little different. I see it in a different way, kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, of course, because I don't have anything in front of me. But, and in so many words, he basically said, I was just hitting on them as far as I was concerned. Right.
But the thing is, again, Anthony Altieri is saying if they fire him on claims and allegations, it can actually cost them more money in legal fees.
Exactly. So that's why they're treading. They are dragging their feet to a point as far as actually suspending the guy. But in other terms, they're trying to do everything they can, it seems like, to not have to pay him any more than they have to. And at this point, regardless, it looks like they're going to pay him to go away, like you said. But I wonder what's going to happen now after these accusations have come out.
Yeah, because in fact, let me call up the article here on my end. CNBC, citing anonymous sources, reported Thursday that the CBS board is in deep talks with the chief executive that result in him leaving the company. Moonves has also told some confidence about the exit talks. A friend who spoke with him about it told CNN. It's unclear if he's trying to fight the board. Moonves did not respond to a request for comment. Spokespeople for the CBS board and the company declined to comment on the reports. Moonves is a legendary broadcasting executive and one of the most prominent CEOs in the country. This is not the way he wanted to go. Last year, he extended his contract through 2021, but two developments this year have rewritten the script. The first development was a dispute over the future of CBS because Sherry Redstone over at Viacom has been trying to get back control of CBS, because she's actually
the merger thing.
She actually has a controlling share in CBS.
Yes, and so you can share.
Basically,
you should be able to share. Control. You should be able to share links in the chat now. Sorry, Mike. I just wanted to let you know that I changed your status. So if you want to throw those up there for people, that's fine. But sorry. Continue.
Let me go ahead and do that real quick, because this will all make a whole lot more sense once you're able to read through the news articles. But so what we're looking at right now is basically Moonves is trying to negotiate an exit, but the more revelations come out, the less incentive CBS has to give him anything, because like I said, Farrow's reporting on this is pretty solid, and I don't see how this really gives Moonves any room to negotiate.
And
it's basically the longer this drags on and the more comes out, the weaker his position is.
Right.
So I think it's kind of iffy at this point as to whether or not he'll get any kind of severance package. If he does get one, it's going to be a lot less than what he was originally contractually obligated to receive.
Right. And as I don't know if you stated this earlier, but Farrow was also the one to expose the Weinstein situation as well, for our listeners out there who may not be up to speed with that as well. So this guy, he's pretty well trusted, as Mike was saying. And I'm hoping Larry was going to join us, because I think he knew more about the whole Joe Quesada thing. So I'm not too sure how much we're going to get into that yet here. But also, this is kind of a pre-game warm-up. We have a big live show coming on the main channel in just a couple hours here with Andre and Rob and myself, where we're going to be taking your guys' questions. So don't forget to join us for that. But this is kind of a pre-game warm-up. But this news just dropped this morning, and of course, Mike, this is like you said, this is a big deal when it comes to how they're going to handle this going forward, I think. And do you think now that in this next week they might suspend him and further the investigation? Or do you think they're going to continue to negotiate with him?
I really don't see how they
think.
Yeah, I really don't see how they avoid suspending him at this point because this revelation has come on a Sunday. People are going to be reading about it Monday, and it's already making the news cycles. It's pretty much the talk of the weekend, which is probably why.
And how many women does that make now? Because that's 6 new ones.
Yeah, so 12 in total.
12, wow.
Right, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be more coming out. Oh, Mecha Rankin is in the chat.
Hey, Mecha. Say she can jump in the show if she wants. I was trying to get a hold of her on Twitter before. Let me see if I can add her to the chat if she wants to join us. But go ahead, Mike, while I'm doing that.
Yeah, like I said, I really don't see how Moonves can avoid getting suspension pending termination because at this point, the more... in fact, Freeze-tastic Voyage set in a situation virtually guarantees Sherry Redstone will get her way in the CBS Viacom merger. And I would have to concur with that opinion because this can only help her right now. Okay, yeah, Mecha just got out of the shower. She didn't know we were going live. Well, we were originally supposed to interview John Malin today, but apparently he wasn't able to get connected with us because he's raised money for a graphic novel that he's come out. Now, if you're familiar with John Malin, he's currently working on Cable for Marvel and has also done work on Thunderbolts, Deadpool, I think, and also...
But yeah, Random, if you want to, we added you to the chat so you can join us whenever you can here. We're going to be on for like maybe another 20 minutes, half hour or so, because we got to get ready for the big live show on the main channel. So, but yeah, you don't know much about this Joe Quesada thing, do you? Other than he's going off on Twitter.
Yeah, because Mark Wade apparently still has a job.
Hello.
Hey, there she is. That was quick.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I didn't even realize there was anything going on today. I'm like, okay,
well, yeah, it kind of happened last minute as Mike was just explaining. We had other plans and
we had other plans that kind of fell through. But it's an interesting thing because Les Moonves is back in the news with 6 more women coming forward to describe even more graphic sexual assault allegations. Including forced oral sex, which, and sorry to get too graphic, but this coming, back from Ronan Farrow at the New Yorker, and then Deadline Hollywood and the Hollywood Reporter are also chiming in, and this coming on the heels of CBS trying to negotiate an exit for Moonves. Because this could affect, a lot of stuff at CBS, 60 Minutes, STD. Pretty much the entire lineup, depending on how things go from here on out.
So what happened with him? More women are coming forward?
Yeah, 6 more women came forward with allegations, but unfortunately, it seems like all of, if not most of them, are well past the statute of limitations. So basically, what we've been explaining and what we're trying to wrap our heads around is how CBS is dealing with this going forward. And the best Mike and I can come up with is that at this point they're trying to find a way to get rid of him that it's going to cost the least. And as we said before, if he actually were to get charged with anything or something like that, perhaps, then maybe CBS could let him go completely, high and dry without a dime. But if they let him go with just accusations, then they stand, legal issues and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, we're trying to wrap around that.
Yeah, because the stuff from the 80s and 90s is past the statute of limitations. I'm not sure about the late aughts, because I'm not familiar with statute of limitations in California. But yeah, so... Yeah, this is pretty big news because, this can only mean that Sherry Redstone...
Well, is there based in California or is it in New York? I can't remember now.
It's either California or New York, but either way, I have to familiarize myself with the laws in both states. Right.
But yeah, other than that, there was the Joe Quesada news. We don't know how up to speed you are with his Twitter rant and freak out on people, but I think Larry knew more about that, so I'm not sure how much we're going to get into that today, but we know you have a bit of a stake in the whole STD thing, Random, so...
Oh, absolutely.
I don't, like I said...
Anything to see the show die quicker, I'm all for, especially after the whole Governor's Award thing yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we didn't get to talk much about that yet either, so if we don't get Larry here, I don't know if we'll talk much about Joe Quesada, but we'll definitely talk about that. So why don't we switch gears for just a minute, Larry? What do you know about all this stuff going on with Joe Quesada right now on Twitter? Of course, Joe Quesada is a comic book legend, I guess. For lack of a better word. Fill us in on what you know anyway, because I'm completely oblivious to this. I was just had this brought up to me by Larry earlier, so yeah. Not trying to throw him under the bus, but we're not sure where he went. He disappeared on us.
Yeah, I think he might have had some stuff to get done.
That's all right.
Yeah, his schedule is pretty hectic on Sunday, so he's only got like a short window to do stuff. But let me see if I can call up, because we were talking about this on Facebook, and I've got...
Do you know anything about it, Random, or are you just new to the game too?
No, I haven't heard any of this yet.
Well, I noticed, I guess he started like yesterday or day before, he started going off on several people for various reasons, I guess.
Yeah, stuff to do with Mark Waid and comedian Rob Schneider is being dragged into stuff, which is... in fact, let me see if I can call it up. Because a lot of this is really bizarre to me. It's like, why are you dragging Rob Schneider in on this?
Well, I noticed he was like calling his quote unquote fans to force for and to go after some person for posting that Hortons is like the Rob Schneider of donuts or something like that. So he got all offended.
Yeah, so John Malin, who is currently penciling for cable and has raised a whole ton of money for a graphic novel he's been working on, he retweeted something by Diversity and Comics, which said, Joe, you employ Mark Waid, a man who sent a black wreath to his former boss saying, what would your dead wife think of you, the wife who died of cancer? You have him on 2 books. Don't act like you're some kind of moral authority, and don't talk about my kids. Then Joe Quesada was saying, this is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of person who is worth following, who is worth giving money to. And he says TOO, which is completely retarded. It's like, dude, learn how to spell. It's TO. Come on. But yeah, so it looks like there's a... Yeah, and then someone said, someone who's done work with for Diversity and Comics, I can say he's definitely worth collaborating with. So, yeah, it looks like Joe Quesada is basically being a Twitter troll, although I haven't seen the beginning of it, because I try not to pass judgment before I get all the facts in, because I don't know who actually started it.
Then let's go at this with a little bit different angle, since the whole Rob Schneider thing happened yesterday, like I said, where he was calling out his Twitter followers to go after an individual. Do you think that celebrities misuse their Twitter and social media? What do you guys think, Random?
Yes, absolutely. I think that once you have like celebrity status and have a huge following, you should really be a lot more careful what you say on social media, for sure. I mean, I just look at what Ryan Johnson does. Look at so many of these people. Like, you kind of have a responsibility to take the higher ground with a lot of stuff, and so many of these people just don't, and they use it to kind of rally people and to bully people and to yeah absolutely.
Yeah, Ethan Van Sciver posted this apparently from Rob Schneider. It says, I've never heard of this woman, but she seems to have a particular problem with me. Dear fans, please feel
Oh, you okay there? I think we lost you, Mike. But yeah, he was reading the tweet that I was referring to. I think he might have accidentally dropped something, or we lost him somehow here. Maybe he unplugged his mic accidentally. Are you still with me, Random?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up this tweet too.
Yeah, but yeah, basically the tweet was, the original tweet was, Tim Hortons is the Rob Schneider of donuts. And Rob Schneider took that as such an insult that he rallied his troops to go after this individual. And, you know, we've even had our back and forth with a few celebrities ourselves, Rob and I, and even I think yourself.
Even me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and to me, it's like, okay, it's one thing to have a discussion, a disagreement, but when you're just going to be a big baby and call to arms, all just like the whole Ryan Johnson thing.
Yeah. Well, you've got to kind of understand that, especially if you're kind of the butt of the joke for a lot of things, take it in stride. I've certainly had, and I'm nobody, and I've had people like make hate videos about me and stuff. So and there's just so much you can do about that. I mean, you're gonna have the haters, you're gonna have, especially
critics.
If you're in the public eye, you're gonna have all that, and a lot of it's like, yeah, you might be right. You could absolutely just take it in stride, take the high ground for sure, and it's nothing to freak out over. Especially like being compared to Tim Hortons. What's wrong with Tim Hortons? I thought they were like the most popular coffee chain.
That's what
in Canada.
I thought too, but yeah, I guess he took it that way. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't like Tim Hortons. I don't know.
And who's Gail Simone anyway?
Gail Simone. I know the name, but it's not. I'm so horrible with faces and names. That's why I have you guys around to remind me who everybody is all the time. I know who I'm talking about, but.
Okay, she's a writer of comics and animation, superhero guru, at the Lion Forge. Okay. So she's I don't know, she kind of looks like everybody in sort of these sort of comic hire sort of thing. She's got the glasses, she's got the hair. I know, I do too. But I don't know who she is.
Well, that's a stereotype that you get, thrown under for some reason. But you're doing it. You've been doing it since it was punk. No.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, like, I don't know the whole thing about this Joe Quesada thing. Like I said, sadly to say, because that was part of the reason why we were having the one guest that was going to be coming on, our surprise guest earlier that didn't show, unfortunately. Not Larry, but the John Malin, how you say your name? I was going to ask him how you say his name, because another thing, I'm horrible at saying names. It's Sunday morning. Give me a break.
Yeah, I know.
But no, I just I hope Larry's okay. That didn't sound good on his end. It was a big bang and then nothing. So
Monday Matt points to me. Oh no, if you smell says Monday Matt points to me. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
What about Monday Matt?
Oh, it's in the chat. I don't know.
That's
what I'm talking about. Take it in stride. I mean, who cares, right? It's criticism, right? And she has 8,000 followers on Twitter, so she's mildly important, it looks like. Yeah, she's just she looks like she's a comic designer sort of person, and
right
in a lot of this geekdom. Yeah, so
M5.
I don't understand why her opinion matters to Rob Schneider.
Yeah. Well, and she might have got a lot of those followers after Rob Schneider went after her too. I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know anything really much about her. So, essentially, or wait, where did it go here? M567DK. Yes, celebrities do sometimes misuse their Twitters for political standings too. Yeah, that's true as well. But unfortunately, we live in a very strange political time. So, without getting too much into it, it's almost like, what are you going to do anymore when you got a celebrity in the White House,
Yeah, and so much with politics too, without taking any sides, is
right.
I compare it very much to sports. It's very much you're on my team or you're the enemy, and there's not like a good common ground there, and it's so much of the political back and forth is very immature on both sides from what I see on Twitter, and I tend to not follow celebrities that do any political anything, because
right.
I kind of want my Twitter feed to be full of like music stuff or nerdy things that I like or people I know on YouTube. So
I do once in a great while, but usually it's in response to something, not like I'm out there just posting stuff left and right. But no, we don't like to get too political here anyway, but I'm not sure if we're getting Mike back here or not. So why don't we talk about this governor's thing? Because I know this is just rubbing you the wrong way.
I've been trying to avoid that. I mean, it's like, Star Trek definitely deserves all the awards if you look at Star Trek up until 2009. But anything post that, I mean, I'm trying to form my opinion here without like really, really insulting people, but I think a lot of people who kind of associate Star Trek with this positive, optimistic outlook on the future don't realize that it's not that thing anymore. It is this dark, gritty, participation awards sort of mentality of a show. Because look at how Mikey Spock is treated at the very end, where she basically is responsible for the death of millions of people and gets reinstated and gets her commission back. So it's very much a, oopsie, I did something terrible, but there's no consequences for it sort of message on the show. And I know that they had this huge ceremony yesterday, and William Shatner, alongside Sonequa Martin Green, is accepting this award. And, Shatner, yes. And I can understand why they put Sonequa Martin Green there, because she's the closest thing they have to a captain. But this is the captain's photo all over again. She's not a leader. She's not an inspiring character on the show. It just, yeah, it really ruffles, like, it really gets me. It rubs me the wrong ways. Don't give them an award for this garbage.
It's all right. I'm trying to bring up the Deadline story here so I can actually give our audience a little bit of perspective if they're not up to speed on it. Let me see here. It's slowly loading because I'm broadcasting out, of course. So we'll just give it a moment. But yeah, I heard about this and I was just like, what? Why would Sonequa Martin Green get anything? For what?
Because she's the closest thing they have to the captain. But it's because I think with Star Trek, they have the memories of it. A lot of the people who do these award shows and who have memories of Star Trek probably haven't watched Discovery or the JJ movies or anything. And yeah, you do have a memory of like these shows being great and wonderful and optimistic. But they're just not that anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, the headline from Deadline is Star Trek's William Shatner and Sonequa Martin Green accept Governor's Awards with members from all 6 series. According to the story here, it was only appropriate that Billy Nye say a few words before Governor's Award presentation for Star Trek and the Creative Arts Emmy. After being introduced by Haima Washington, Nye said of Star Trek, it may have started off as an entertainment series, but it changed the world, and I feel it changed the world for better. And I've seen a lot of people say on this, how is this Discovery going to make anybody want to get into creating anything like the original Star Trek did, to where, it created, it was a idea pool. To where there were so many things for the future implications that people strive to work towards. There's nothing to strive to work towards in this. You know what I mean?
No. It's all about conflict and backstabbing and trickery and douchebaggery is a word I like to use with it. But...
Or as we usually say, Game of Thrones in space. But yeah, it's... All right, anyway, going on with the story. The monolithic sci-fi franchise, as Nye put it, looked at how takes a look. They need to reread.
Proofread your articles.
Deadline. Come on, you're better than this. Come on, you're not Screen Rant for fuck's sake. Proofread your shit here, guys. You're worse than us. Takes a look at the universe and beyond in perfect and imperfect harmony. He also says it embraces all categories in tonight's ceremonies. Following a reel of footage featuring all Star Trek series, he brought out a massive crowd of members of the cast, crew from the 6 original Star Trek series through to Star Trek Discovery. Following an overwhelming wave of Star Trek nostalgia beamed down to the stage, including a Kelpian and Klingon, Nye introduced Alex Kurtzman, LeVar Burton, Linda Park, Jerry Ryan, Walter Koenig, Terry Farrell, and, of course, Sonequa Martin Green and William Shatner. Shatner says that after 52 years, everyone who has been involved in Star Trek is grateful. The original captain says that Star Trek is a phenomenon that represents an idea that is greater than all its parts. Except for Discovery. Yeah. I accept this... He didn't say that. It used to be that. I accept this award for all the artists who have worked to make the show a success, he said. Backstage, Koenig, Burton, Ryan, Shatner, Martin Green, and Kurtzman talked about how the Star Trek franchise still resonates after all these decades. It resonates because we are talking about topical issues. Does he even watch his own show? No. Topical issues and social...
I'm sure he doesn't.
I feel like I'm reading just like a bunch of horse shit here. It's like... Yep. Yeah, anyway. And socio-political content, and Koenig, who played memorable Chekhov, he said that and that still resonates today. Evidently, Walter Koenig doesn't watch Discovery either. And Burton chimed in, it's all about good storytelling. Burton doesn't watch it either.
No. Well, and Star Trek used to be that. I mean, it really used to. It's just not anymore.
We still worry about living together and having a fruitful, joyful experience, continues Koenig. We are best with problems that we hid in the 60s. Or had in the 60s, sorry. Yeah, they did great with that, but Discovery isn't. All they're doing is making the Empire great again.
Yeah.
I don't even want to keep going on this crap.
Well, let me read what Kurtzman said.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Kurtzman adds that Star Trek has been a beacon of hope for so many people for so long. In dark times, we need that hope, he said. Fucking Kurtzman, did you even watch the show?
Exactly. I can't even talk. I can't even tell others lies, is what I'm trying to say. I have a hard time. When I know something's bullshit, just throwing it out there and saying, oh yeah, this person said this, but you know it's bullshit because they don't know what they're...
They don't watch the show that they're on. They don't realize that it is not this optimistic, hopeful thing. I mean, it is the participation award of Star Trek. She starts this giant war with the Klingons, gets millions of people killed.
Right.
They encourage racism, all this stuff, sexism by discouraging anybody for disliking her for the, they call you out for being like, oh, you're a racist, you're a sexist because you don't like her. It's like, no, I don't like the character. I don't care. So they're encouraging sexism and racism with that from their fandom.
Or at least hiding behind it anyway, yeah.
Yeah, they're hiding behind it. They're critic proofing their show. And yeah, it's just bullshit. She gets an award, she gets a medal at the end of the first season and gets reinstated. I mean, Tom Paris did less and he got worse. He never got reinstated into Starfleet as far as I can remember on Voyager. And he served 7 years on a ship doing absolutely nothing else.
And don't you think he would have used Mikey Spock as a defense?
Yeah. He would have said, well, she got her commission back and she started the freaking Klingon War and brought Space Hitler into this universe.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't even seen the end of what damage she's caused yet. There could be a whole lot more yet. But yeah, Mike, unfortunately, it sounds like, had lost his power. So...
Oh, that sucks.
Invite me back into the call, please. All right, so let me see if I can get him back here. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I was really trying to, like, yesterday this put me in a mood, and I just they're doing it because of the Star Trek Day, because it's
yesterday was the anniversary, yeah.
And I understand why it deserved it to a point. But when you change your show so dramatically and you're alienating half of your viewers and you're causing tension, and like there are YouTube channels out there that are really affected by this because, all they do is talk about Star Trek and half of their fans are pissed off at them for not bashing Discovery, and half of their fans are calling them shills for not bashing or for not like dissing Discovery and or for praising it too much or for like walking the line in between. And it's really hard to form thoughts like super early in the morning for me.
I'm back.
I'm so enraged by this stuff. I don't. It's like they don't understand their show. And yeah, definitely 20 years ago, absolutely it would have deserved every award it got. But they aren't keeping that quality of writing or storytelling or integrity. And that's
they're not. It's like they've forgotten. It's like, I mean, with the whole thing about like that military discipline on there, because I remember reading articles before Star Trek Discovery was even expected to be broadcast when it was still in development. There were articles saying about how some of the former Trek writers like Michael Piller were complaining about, we're doing away with Roddenberry's box, where it's like they didn't want to have stories where it's like because Roddenberry had said you can't have a lasting conflict among the crew. It can come from outside, it could come from an alien influence, but it has to be resolved by the end of the episode. It can't be a long-standing thing. But he was approaching this from the situation of having served on naval vessels during World War II and understanding that military discipline that's needed for a ship that's at sea for months at a time.
Yeah.
And he simply transferred that to space. So, clearly the people now have no understanding because they've never served in the military. And that's why you've got this writing now where it's like, oh, hey, we're going to have all this drama and conflict and backstabbing along the crew. Well, that is a crew that cannot function.
Exactly. Not only that, they have one person who does everything, and you're exactly right with the backstabbing. Like, just the disrespect for your superior officers, the disrespect for your co-workers, basically. I mean, even a job, you wouldn't be allowed to keep a job if you're that disrespectful to your coworkers. I mean, unless you're in Hollywood, I suppose. But they don't understand anything that made Star Trek great. It was this military sort of thing. And there was a genuine love and compassion and camaraderie with the crews, because you're on these ships for years and years. They're your family. You can't have all this petty bullshit. You can't have, oh, well, he's just a Kelpian. What does he know? You can't have like your interpersonal, basically speciesism, racism is kind of one of the things that they first episode of the show. They're making cracks. Giorgio and Mikey Spock are making cracks about the race of Saru being, why he's so overly sensitive and afraid of everything. Well, yeah, that's his species. That's technically racism if you're making fun of him for that. He can't help it. He was born that way. And it's just an insane thing that they don't understand. They don't understand the basic principles of Star Trek anymore. What do you think about that, Tom?
I'm thinking my donut's pretty good.
Lucky.
Yeah, you know how I feel about it. I've gotten to the point where it's just...
Oh, maybe they could do a new 52 reboot again, because Anthony Altieri was just talking about Flashpoint, where Flash went back in time and caused a boom that it actually changed, even where Superman landed. Well, now they've got... no, it's not New 52 anymore. It's Rebirth, where they actually undid Flashpoint to a certain extent. So now they're trying to get everything back to where it was. But you had like several alternate Supermans all sharing the same universe, and Lex Luthor took up the mantle of Superman using armor he'd gotten from Apocalypse, where they wanted to make him a king, and he turned them down. So it's like, okay, when did Luthor become a good guy?
Well, Luthor to me has always been kind of outside of his business aspect. Because as a businessman, he's ruthless. When it comes to Superman, he's not completely wrong. You know what I mean? In most iterations, he's basically looking out for humanity. And Batman does the same thing. If you look at it, Batman treats Superman almost the same way. He has a contingency always set up in case Superman goes ape shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which if you play the video game or read the graphic novel series, Gods Among Us, that actually is based on the idea that Superman has gone batshit insane.
Right, and if Smallville taught us anything, it doesn't take much
to
get Superman.
Not really.
And we want to thank the Hunky Chunky Funky Monkey for the £5 super chat. Research is hard. Just write whatever. That's their mantra nowadays. They want the credits without the work. Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not even trying anymore, it seems like. You're right. It's as long as, if you want to do a self-contained universe, that's fine. Do a self-contained universe. But don't peddle it as prime or canon. That's what we want. We don't want people telling us that this is supposed to take place 10 years before the original series when there's no fucking way that's possible, basically. But yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't even match up with the aesthetics of the original show.
No.
And if you're going to do that, I mean, you're setting it. What gets me is that they lied from the beginning. They said it was going to be set in the prime timeline. They lied about it. It's not set in the prime timeline. They said it wouldn't be associated with the Jar Jar Abrams and Bad Robot. It has been. So, they've just been lying to viewers from the beginning. And I think that, as much as anything else, is what has ticked off so many fans, because, people, it's like the rule of thumb in succeeding in Hollywood is never piss off the fans. Never insult your audience, because they will punish you. And this is what we're seeing now.
Exactly. Not only that, they also lied, saying they swore Spock would never be in the universe ever. They're like, oh no, you'll never see Spock. Don't worry about that. We're never going to tarnish the name of Spock. So what do they do? Oh, Ethan Peck's announced as Spock, and he's going to be in the season. Like, we knew this would happen when you're making an adopted sister for him. Especially when we're seeing Sarek, especially with all this, we knew that was going to happen. And
Sarek is now Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And he can force project himself across the cosmos.
Well, and not only that, like they don't understand what one of the things that was so special about Star Trek, which was fans, studied the in-universe science, and yeah, I know a lot of it's bullshit science, but
it's not just the continuity. You're right. Yeah.
It has to make sense in the universe. If you're telling me that you can't teleport from outside of orbit of a planet, like from Earth to the moon, you cannot teleport. You can teleport from like a ship in orbit to Earth, but you can't teleport, from a ship in orbit of Earth to the moon, because that's just too far. There's no like, they don't even give us any like hint of how far these ships are away from each other when they're teleporting, Vok out of space when she spaces the guy. Like, okay, so what? The Discovery was like right up the Mirror Universe Shenzu's ass or something the whole time, and they didn't fire on them. Like, you have to be pretty much like right up the ship's ass to teleport. And there's all these like universe and science continuity issues. The holograms would take half an hour to project a hologram or across the universe. The distance. If Voyager is like 75,000 light years and it takes 75 years to get back, or however far it was. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. You're telling me all these things that don't match up in the universe. So there's a lot of things that are interfering with suspending your disbelief. I mean,
right.
The rules make sense in your own universe.
Right. Well, to be fair, classic Trek TNG was never all that good with continuity anyway. Because if you think about it, when Voyager was telling the backstory for 7 of 9, the first encounter between the Borg and the Federation was in the episode, I think, Q Who in season 2, where he causes them to be flung into the Delta Quadrant, where they meet the Borg for the first time. And then, just a few years later, you've got 7 of 9 who's all grown up. Mm-hmm. And they never hinted that she was in a Borg maturation chamber. But they had it so that her parents were chasing after the Borg years before anyone is supposed to have ever encountered them. So how is that even possible?
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of little inconsistencies here and there, but for the most part, like they do their best to tie them all in.
What I think Random's getting at is that Star Trek has always been science fiction as opposed to Star Wars, which is more science fantasy.
Yeah.
To where at least the stuff in Star Trek is generally based in some type of fact. To where they used to do their research. They even used to have like scientists and doctors and stuff that they would consult on a lot of this kind of shit usually.
Oh yeah,
they
exactly.
Did. Yeah, and for example, with the episode Relics, where they brought Scotty back, played by James Doohan, they came up with the concept of the Dyson sphere, although they kind of fudged it because they made it like this one solid shell around a solar system. And the way Freeman Dyson and before him Olaf Stapleton envisioned it was like this network of platforms that would surround the star. But it was based on actual science, stuff that people had written before.
Mm-hmm. And they tried their best to kind of keep it consistent in their universe. I mean, you would have instances where, yes, they would do site-to-site transporting here and there, but they would always give you a reason of, well, it's super dangerous and it doesn't always work, and here's why it's a bad idea. But in Discovery, which is like years and years before Next Generation, when technology wasn't as good in the universe, they're doing site-to-site transports at the drop of a hat anywhere on the ship. That like, why do you even walk over to the transporter pad when you've transported from wherever the crap you are already 30 times in the episode? It's like, why bother showing the shot even? And there's just
it's
so
like
many
they're doing the Star Trek Online version of Star Trek on Discovery, which brings me to my next point. Is now Discovery is being forced upon Star Trek Online as a next expansion. I don't see very many people getting that.
Yeah.
Didn't somebody say they had to give it away for free, or is it all the stuff for free?
Well, there's lock boxes that get dropped, but I haven't seen a whole lot of demand for the lock boxes. Like maybe I'll see one or two Discovery-based starships, but no one's really using it. They're doing all this stuff because they just brought back like Rene Urbanajo and some of the cast from Deep Space Nine for the current expansion, which is like Victory is Life, where they're bringing back the Dominion War storyline like 30 years later.
Right. All right. Well, we're running long here, but we're going to take a few questions from you guys in the chat real quick, unless there's anything else you guys have to add about this whole governor. Well, Mike, you didn't really get to comment on it. We started off talking about the whole governor's award thing. I don't know if you really got to give your feelings on it. So why don't you do that real quick while we're waiting for some questions in the chat.
I'll put it to you this way, because I heard that Kathleen Kennedy is getting an honorary Oscar. It's like for what? For turning a multi-billion-dollar franchise into something that loses money in the space of 3 years?
Well, I did kind of stick up for her. I said, yeah, she's never actually won an Oscar. We did look. So technically, yes, she does deserve one for her body of work prior to Star Wars. But Random and Rob and I are all pretty much under the assumption that a lot of this has to do with kind of an exit package for her. Since ABC has a lot to do with the Oscars, I'm sure they have some influence in that, which obviously ABC being owned by Disney, etc., etc. So I'm sure a lot of this is because, we were rumored to hear that this month she was going to step down, which I said I don't buy. I think she's going to be around till at least episode 9's done. But I think this whole Oscar thing is going to be the beginning of her retirement. And I think Random had a similar thought to that in a way.
Yeah, okay. Angry Mr. Fibble is saying the Borg were around before Q, who they destroyed the Federation and Romulan bases at the end of season 1 in the neutral zone, but they didn't know who was responsible. Yeah, that was actually they were setting it up in that episode, but I don't think that they had officially announced it. I think at that point, because I'm just basically
don't they
going
consider
by what
when
was
they've
actually
come into
broadcast.
contact for the first time? First contact, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they were kind of like trying to set that up, and then they decided to retcon it later. But they were, it was kind of, but for Star Trek First Contact, that was like a time travel story, and kind of like they weren't supposed to.
No, but I mean the actual timeline as far as when they actually say, okay, such and such alien race could not be used prior to such date because they did not have first contact with humans or the Federation until this time. Which is like a whole thing with, like the Borg and everything that everybody's getting upset about. Yeah,
and, again, this is, kind of stuff where it's like, Star Trek is never all that good about maintaining continuity because they were referred to stuff from the original series, and then when they went back and did Enterprise and Voyager, and even Deep Space Nine, they went back and kind of changed stuff up from what had been mentioned previously. It's like, well, guys, if you actually go back and watch the original material or go back and look at this stuff, you won't have to worry about this. I'm a stickler for continuity because if you contradict yourself, people are going to pick up on it because, like I said, audiences are smarter than we're given credit for. And if you take that attitude, oh, well, it's just a TV show, you lifeless loser. Well, but yeah, you're the one writing it and kind of insulting us and saying, oh, hey, you don't pay too much attention. Well, that only goes to a point.
Right. Well, and some actors do understand that, especially when it comes to Star Trek. Because I've heard most of them say, at least at one point or another, oh, the fans know more about my character or the show than I do. You know what I mean? So that's a given. And we want to thank Alexander Wilson for the $5 super chat. He asked us a very tough question to answer. Can we talk about the cast and director have bailed on press with Olivia Munn because she told Fox about the sex offender in the movie? Now, I've heard conflicting stories about whether or not Shane Black was aware of the status. The guy did his time. He was convicted of enticing a 14-year-old, and I actually read the text messages. And I mean, my opinion on the matter is this: if the studio's in a strange place because they can't not necessarily hire somebody unless there's a reason, because then they can be sued. then you have the other side of this where supposedly Shane Black was unaware, and then in other stories I've heard he was completely aware, like I said, and he didn't inform anybody else on the cast. And as long as he isn't working with any kids, I don't see where it'd be an issue. I can understand where Olivia Munn's coming from, but they deleted the scene from the movie, so as far as I'm concerned, she got her way. I'm not sure why she's acting the way she is about it. I mean, it would be one thing if Fox refused to delete the scene, but he plays a jogger who hits on Olivia Munn, basically. So, I mean, I guess he was kind of casted perfectly. If you ask me, I don't know. What's your guys' thought on this? Random, let's go to you first since you're a woman on this. Well, how do you feel about the situation? Are you up to speed on it? Or
I'm really not super up to speed on it, but you know, I think if as long as like they're kind of cutting him out of the movie, I think that's kind of a win for her, isn't it? Like, I mean, maybe she's upset because there was a scene she's in. I don't know.
I mean, I can understand that part. I can understand her having a personal issue with Shane Black being like, why didn't you tell me?
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the guy has a right to work as well. He did his time, you know, and so on like that. Granted, I don't agree with it. There's probably a million other jobs the guy could be doing in the world, but at least on a movie set, unless there's kids involved, I don't see a problem because there's hundreds of people around all the time.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the things. I think that has such a stigma in our culture that once you screw up one time, you're kind of witch hunted until the end of eternity, because there's a lot of a psychological issue, and there's a lot of, you know, it stays with the victim forever. And absolutely not condoning, you know, one way or another on any of that,
right.
You know. But you've got to kind of understand too, at some point, how much is enough, like as a society, when has your time served, like when is that enough for people? And you know, obviously from the victim standpoint, this sticks with you forever,
right?
And
it's a stigma that stays there, unfortunately. No matter what.
That's more of an overall society like sort of question in general. So it's just a tough one to answer for sure. But
and you also have to keep in mind though that you know, there is actual legitimate issue to be raised, because if remember Eliza Dushku coming forward earlier this year about Joel Kramer, who is a stunt coordinator,
and that's my point.
True
Is
Lies.
like, is this person going to be working with a kid or not?
Right.
If that's the case, then technically the studio, unless there's a way they can do it legally, then, because you know, that's the problem. You put yourself in a position where if you don't hire somebody over certain things, unless it's stipulated in a way, or they're working with kids or something like that, these kind of situations can get dicey, because then that person can turn around and sue you as well. Now this guy's taking it in stride. You know, he just says that, you know, Shane kind of played him wrong. He knew about it from what I read, and that's all I know on that part. But it doesn't matter in the end. The part's gone. As far as Olivia Munn's concerned, I understand her personal beef with Shane Black, but as far as not promoting the movie because of this shit, I don't know. See, that's the thing. You won already, like Random said. You won. You got the scene taken out. So then at that point, why wouldn't you still play ball with the studio unless there's another reason behind it? I understand feeling, like I said, the way you would do by being lied to, but it wasn't the studio that did it. It wasn't the movie and the rest of the crew and the rest of the cast and everybody else. It was Shane Black. So have an issue with Shane Black, not the movie and the studio.
Right. Well, Alexander Wilson just asked, the male cast and director bailed on pre-planned press interviews, which Olivia Munn had to do by herself. So that might have something to do with it. If they're doing like this petty personality shit, then
that's the problem too. Is you always have this back and forth going on, and we've covered this kind of stuff before in the past, as far as casts not getting along and rumors and stuff like that. And this, I could see where it would be something that would really piss people off. But if Olivia Munn did show up, then I got to give her props. Why everybody else would have bailed is beyond me, other than Shane Black was trying to probably avoid.
Yeah, Anthony Altieri is saying
she is. Okay,
Olivia's
well, if that's
promoting the movie. It's the rest of the cast
I
walking
apologize
out.
because yesterday I'd read that she had been talking about not. So if she is out there, that's cool. But, you know, at the same time, don't be bad-mouthing the movie unless you have a good reason to. This is not a good reason not to. But if the rest of the cast and crew is not out there, they're just trying to avoid the subject then. And I don't know why they would. I mean, this is just, it's Shane Black who's got the one who has to answer for this in the end. And I guess this guy was also in Iron Man 3, I read. that one worries me more than anything, because there was that one kid in that movie, and I don't know what scene he was in, but it's like
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and the other thing I guess I could add is that at the end of the day, this is your job, though, also to go out and promote the movie. Like, how much of your job of making movies is doing the press tours, doing the interviews. Like,
it's
I
usually
think
contractually obligated to.
Exactly.
Generally.
Yeah, it's written in there so that you have to go and promote the movie because you're in it. So, and that's usually for the principals. Like, obviously, if you're just an extra in there, you don't have to do that. But yeah, if you're one of the
usually
principal
just
actors,
the principal
in
actors, director. Yeah, sometimes a producer, maybe if they're a big celebrity. But I don't know. I've heard the movie has more problems than a formerly convicted pedophile or whatever you want to put it.
Okay, Read by Nature is asking, is a Predator a shit show? Don't mean reviews between reshoots, rewrites, and cast walking out on
That's
PR.
kind of what we're hearing, is that, the movie's not as good as they were hoping anyway. But
it's like, why even do a reboot anyway? I mean, because is this a sequel or is it a reboot or
as
what?
far as I know, it was more of a reboot until one of the screenings. And then after that, they went back and filmed some stuff to connect it, to have more connective tissue with the other films. To the point where, I think I brought this up the other night with Random on the show, where Jake Busey, I guess, is even playing the son of Gary Busey's character from Part 2. So,
because from what I've seen of some of the previews, it looks like they've got a female Predator fighting against a larger male one that's been like all hopped up on whatever genetic engineering. So they're actually, now the thing being used to sell the movies, that now they're hunting each other on Earth for no reason in particular. But that's kind of funny because
so it's
from all the
Alien versus
novelizations
Predator
and stuff,
redo, basically, with Requiem, because that was kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and although from what I am given to understand from the novelizations and stuff, like the women in Predator Society are actually larger and stronger than the males because of the evolutionary cycle, kind of like with some African predator species like lions and whatnot. The females might be a bit larger than the males just because the males will tend to eat the young, so the females have to be stronger. So that's kind of how it was written in, at least in the novels for the Predator canon. So I don't know.
So I wasn't aware of that, but yeah.
Yeah, but this seems like they're going in the exact opposite direction.
If You Smell wonders our thoughts on Bohemian Rhapsody being PG-13. Well, I have been kind of vocally against that from the start, and every trailer I see of the movie just makes it look like a generic VH1 type biopic kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem that Sacha Cohen had when he was in talks with and I can kind of see both sides of that, because on the one hand, Cohen really is an ass, and he is completely disrespectful towards the band members. On the other hand, the band members, Brian May and John Deacon and Roger Taylor, they kind of do want basically the official biography on film, which, I mean, that's their right, but I can kind of see where.
But does it seem like they're rewriting history a little bit, though, too, in a way? Random. I don't know how much of a Queen fan you are, but I'm a huge Queen fan. And
Oh, I know enough of their stuff. I definitely grew up with definitely grew up with a lot of their music. Anytime that they have any of these, just look at the Doors movie. Like, so much of that was rewritten and didn't happen, or people were combined to be one thing. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you kind of
even was way.
And La Bamba and
because if you think about it, sorry to interrupt, but if you think about it, books don't often translate quite that well into cinema unless you really know how to write it that way. Because if you think about it, because I just got finished rereading the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and looking back on the Peter Jackson films, like the first three, I can see why he made most, if not all, of the changes he did.
Yeah, but a fiction novel is a little different than a biopic. Because look at Man on the Moon. They managed to capture, even though they had to truncate a lot of it, everything in that movie happened.
Yeah.
And
so it is possible, but I think it's probably the exception rather than the rule, because directors and writers, they tend to see it as being like, oh, this doesn't seem dramatic enough. We have to make this altercation. So there's too many people here. We're going to have to consolidate.
Right. Well, that I don't mind so much. You can always, you know, there's times where you have to almost to truncate a story to fit it within 2.5 hours. And with Queen, you're going to have to do that. And unlike, like you said, you know, sometimes you got to sensationalize the story to make it more interesting. With Queen, you don't have to, especially with Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, he was a rock star. I mean, you know, that's one thing with a lot of these movies.
I would argue he was one of the first rock stars. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You had Elvis and you had the Beatles, but I mean, as far as your leading front man, he was one of the first.
Yeah. And by rock star, I mean, like, the celebrity. He was the draw, you know? Like, a lot of people don't, like, modern people who don't really know a lot about Queen, they'll know Freddie Mercury. Like, they won't know Brian May, and they won't know that, like, all the guys in Queen did all of the backup vocals, and they were all extraordinarily talented musicians.
Well, to be fair to Brian May, he was actually probably at least as important in Queen as Freddie Mercury.
Well, yeah, all the band members were actually, each one of the band members wrote one of their #1 hits.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but May has also done lead vocals on a number of Queen songs.
Who Wants to Live Forever and some of the other stuff,
Yeah, so I think he was at least as important. But with John Deacon, I think
so far I have no issues with all the rest of the casting. Rami Malek is the only one I don't like. And the reason is kind of funky, because then you'll say, well, why would you want Sacha Baron Cohen? And I'll explain that real quick, is because when I look at Rami Malek, all I see is Rami Malek. I don't see Freddie Mercury. Mm-hmm. I believe Cohen could have just dived into that character so much that I would have forgotten after about 5-10 minutes that it was him. Kind of like what Jim Carrey did with Man on the Moon, again, to bring that up. Because I was against that. Because I'm a huge Andy Kaufman fan. Also a Jim Carrey fan, but I was like, I can't see Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman. 5 minutes into the movie, I was sold. Now, I think Cohen could have pulled that off with this movie. If he could have compromised, maybe. I still don't know about the PG-13 thing. All that tells me is they're going to tame down Freddie Mercury's life.
Yeah, because Cohen wanted to do a tell-all and sensationalize it, and the band members were like, "No, sorry, you're not disrespecting Freddie's memory like that," which I can understand. But at the same time, it is a fact. Freddie Mercury did, sleep with everything that moved, and he paid the price for it. I mean,
I don't think he'd have a problem if you did a warts and all story. But B, in an interview once, he also did say, once you tell my story, make up anything you want, I don't care, kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, but he did kind of say something to that effect. So I don't know how he would feel about this. I really don't.
I think they're trying to appeal to a lot of the newer people who don't really know Queen, who didn't see them live on television, and before he died, and people who didn't grow up watching it, because there is a whole huge new fan base out there that knows Bohemian Rhapsody. They know We Will Rock You because these songs are so iconic. You have young kids playing Just Dance who know Queen songs, and I think a lot of it, they're trying to appeal to pretty much everybody. They want to get as many people into the theater as they can, and that's why they have to tame it down. And sadly, with something like The Doors, which I'm pretty sure that one was an R, because that was Oliver Stone. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Oh, absolutely. You got that on.
That one was, it had nudity and drugs in it. Yeah. Okay. But with something like that, you were
honestly, I don't think Oliver Stone has ever made a movie that wasn't rated R.
That's true. Yeah. But with The Doors or something, you're appealing to the higher crowd, and with Queen, you're trying to appeal to everybody because they are more of a general band. They're more of a drawing, bringing your kids and your family. So I can see why they're doing that. But
Read by Nature says you should hear Jerry Lawler's account of working with Jim Carrey. Andy and Jerry were close friends, but Carrey treated him like crap.
Well, yeah, that
movie. If you have a chance to see that documentary about the making of Man on the Moon that's on Netflix, do it. It is worth it, because you basically understand what was going on during the make of that movie. Jim Carrey isn't one to be a what do you call it? Method actor, yeah. But when it came to this movie, he was.
Yeah, he went full in character. He even went as far as to say, yes, call me Andy, and he was talking to Andy Kaufman's family, saying, please call me Andy. And I think it really helped him become Andy Kaufman, and he was I was with you. I'm like, okay, is Jim Carrey gonna pull off Andy Kaufman? Because I also grew up really a huge Andy Kaufman fan, and Yeah, and he sold it. It worked. It worked really well for me.
Yeah, the famous story in that documentary I'm talking about that I love was he calls the director, or the director called him, and he goes, "I can't take it anymore. I can't deal with Andy on set anymore. I can't deal with this anymore, Jim. What can I do?" And Jim goes, "Well, I could show up tomorrow and I could do an impression of Andy Kaufman, and I could be Jim on the set, no problem. But I don't know if it'd be as good. So that's completely up to you." And he's like, there was a long pause, and he's like, "No, I just wanted to talk to Jim for a minute or two. That's okay." That whole thing is full of those kind of stories, because it's true. He became Andy Kaufman. He became, all the several characters, Latka, and, all that kind of stuff. Whatever character he was that day, and Andy worked the same way, though. That was why. Because when he was playing whoever he was, you referred to him who he was, or
like with Tony Clifton.
Yep,
although he didn't always play Tony Clifton, he actually, sometimes his brother or his agent would play Tony Clifton, and he'd be at home laughing because people thought it was him. And it's like, Arcane Flash just said something. John Malin threw a bomb in the fire when he posted Robbie Rodriguez censored butt pics to Marvel at Disney.
Yeah, I said maybe that's why he backed out on us this morning. I don't know. So yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, like I said before, we were supposed to do an interview with John Malin. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get him online. So we're going to try and reschedule. He does have a graphic novel coming out that he's actually. In fact, let me go ahead and post a link here. I don't think he'll mind. But yeah, if you go to his Indiegogo page, he's actually, out of a $5,000 fixed goal, he raised, as of right now, $58,070 for it. And it's basically for something he describes as Universal Monsters meets the X-Men.
But yeah, unfortunately, we got to bring this to a close here real soon, because I got to get ready for the show on the main channel. So hopefully all you guys who are watching join us on the main channel here in just a little bit for our live show over there. I noticed at one point we had over 100 people in here, which is great.
Yeah, 121 and now 120. Yeah, 112.
Wow.
But yeah, it'll be interesting looking at the main channel live. So
yeah, and Alexander Wilson and Hunky Chunky Monkey and everybody else who gave us super chats today, we really appreciate that. Those always help us out here at the channel. Of course, I want to thank Random for joining us at a random moment.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
living
inviting
up to your
me.
name. Yeah, I tried getting a hold of you, but you were evidently in the shower. So
yeah. Sleep in, and I sleep in on most days. I apologize.
And unfortunately, we never seem to get Larry on. But I've talked to Larry on your guys' channel.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's avoiding me or anything like that. I know he's a good guy. Something must have come up. So shit happens. I just want to say hey to Larry. But yeah, Mike, thanks for
he was with us in
spirit. And we're also simulcasting on your channel as well. So
it was until the power went off. I was I was in the middle of recording, and then so it just would have been too much trouble trying to.
Well, if you have to steal the audio for mine, that's fine. Go ahead.
That's fine. Well, I think there's a YouTube downloader out there somewhere.
I'm sure.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll download.
No, that's fine. You have my permission. So yeah. So yeah, we want to thank you all for joining us, and of course, jump over to the main channel here in just a little bit. I think that's gonna start here in just less than a half hour, or just around a half hour here. It's almost 20 after 1 my time. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today, and Mike also for having me on his show as well. So thanks to all you guys for joining us in the chat. We didn't get to a lot of the questions at the end there. Sorry about that, but we do have to kind of cut this off. We went a little longer than had planned. So yeah, Harv guy in the shower. Go on, please, Random.
Well, what is there to say? You use soap and you
wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for joining us here on Midnight's Edge After Dark.